Hello everybody, my name is Colin Frisky. Today we are going to implement our fighting combo script from the previous tutorial. If you haven't watched that, the link will be down in the description. And what we're going to do is we're just going to get straight into it. So here you can see I have a player. He has a character controller and our fighting combo script on him. You can see that I kept all the inputs and all the attacks from the previous tutorial, but I did change the name and basically the length of these attacks. That is because you can see here in our character, in our animation, we have a couple of animations that we are going to be using here. They're all from Mixamo.com, and you can see here's a nice idle, and we have some special attacks, but we always have our light punch, our heavy punch, and a kick. So you can see here they're just named light, heavy, and kick. Hence why heavy, light, and kick. And the length is the length and time of those animations. So you can see here, if I go into the animator here, light is 1 minute or 1 second, heavy is 0.983, and kick is 1.467. So that is why those values are there. We have no combos set up currently, but you can see in our animator here that each of these attacks, you got to make sure there's no loop time and they go all the way back to idle that you want. So what I have is the exit time has an exit time. The exit time is at the very end, so 1, and the transition duration is just 0.125. So you can see here we're going to punch and then it goes right back into the idle. So punch and then it goes right into the idle. If that's too jarring, you can always turn it up to 0.25 seconds, but I think 1.25 works perfectly and is a nice fast pace for the fighting, just having fighting in general. Because everything in fighting should be pretty fast paced. I'm going to turn the combo leeway down to 0.2, just because I think that's a good spot for it. So now what we're going to do is, you can see if we hit play, we're going to get some errors. And especially if I try to, or we're not going to get errors, but it's not going to work. So I'm trying. Oh, there they are. So right here, you see there's no animator on the player. And that is because when we go up here, animator is just set to the component of the transform, but we have it on the player and not the character. So what we're going to do is we're just going to get rid of that and set the Annie to public, so we can set it manually in here to our character. You can always do get component in children if you would like. I'll write that out. Get component in children and then animator if you would like, but I'm just gonna set it in here. So from there, now what you can see is when we go in, you can see we're actually going to be able to do our attacks. And our player attacks just like that. So what now we're going to do is we are going to see how a combo works again. So we're going to name it Fireball. Inputs, we'll have 3 heavies just because that's what it sets it as right quick. The name is Fireball, and you can see here Fireball. The length is 1.667, so that's what we're going to turn it to. So now if I go in and I hit 3 heavies, and we do a fireball combo. So that's pretty good, boom. Yeah, so you can do some pretty cool combos with it. Alright. So now what we're going to do is we are going to kind of get movement input, so we can do like a left right heavy instead of just heavy heavy heavy. So to do that, we're going to need to create a new script to kind of manage the movement. So we're just going to call it movement input. What this is basically going to do is going to basically read joystick inputs or your movement input and just kind of return the specific value and basically manage if we are flipping between them, like if we are going from 0 to 1 or 0 to -1 or -1 to 1, we're going to just keep hold of that so we know what movement we're doing and basically send it to the fighting combo and be like, oh, he just did a right, right, left kind of thing. So to do that, we are going to start off with some static values just for x and y. Ooh. X, y, and then let's do a static bool x down. So this is going to hold if we just put a new x value down. So if we went from like 0 to 1 or 1 to -1, but it's only going to happen as long as it's not 0. So it's okay if it will be true if we're going from 0 to a value, but it will not be true if we're going to a value to 0. So we should probably put floats in here so it knows what type it is. And so now what we're going to do is we're basically just going to get these inputs and kind of send them into those variables right there. To do that, we're just going to create another function, and I'm just going to call it getInput. We're going to reference a float of a value. This will either be x or y, depending. And we're going to reference the bool of down. This will be either x underscore down or y underscore down. And then we need the access that we want to read for them. So our float will have input, input equals get access. We're going to do raw for now, so we easier because raw returns like a -1, 0, or 1. But we are going to just basically double check and kind of, we're going to force it to be either 1, or if it's less than 0, then -1. And I'm going to kind of put this out because 2 nested if statements is pretty gross. So what this is doing is input. First it checks if input is greater than 0. If it is, so if it is, it sets it to 1. Else, what we're doing now is we're checking if it's less than 0. If that is true, then it equals -1. Else, it equals 0. So this one basically just forces input to be 1, -1, or 0. And this gets the input from the access. We're just basically covering our asses because even though with the keys, when you get access raw, you can only return -1, 1, or 0. With the joystick, you are still able to get those in-between values, and we don't want any of those in-between values. So now what we want to do is if our input here does not equal the value that we're referencing, so if it's a new input, then what we're going to do is we're going to set the value to input. And if the val does not equal 0, as we said, then we want to set down. So we're our reference bool down to true. And then if this is not true, then we just want to do down equals false. And then what we can do here is we can just kind of take this and basically just kind of do this. So down checks first if it is not 0. If it's not 0, then down is true. If it is 0, down is false. And if input does not equal value, then down is false as well. So that's basically it. That's to get our inputs. Now we have to set them. So we're going to reference x. We're going to reference x underscore down for the down bool. And our axis is going to be horizontal. We're going to copy that and do the same for y values. There. And just to cover some ground here, let's just do and then y underscore down. There. So now what we got to do is we got to be able to get that. So we're just going to do a public static bool, we're gonna do input x down, or input down x, which is just gonna return x down. And then we're gonna do the same for y. So just copy it, and copy it. So just copy it and then change it to y, just like that. So now what we got to do is we basically have to implement this movement into our combo input. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new type. So first let's set this to be able to be none. That way we don't get confused, and let's create a new enum movement type. This is just going to be up, down, left, right. There. And then come down here to movement input, and we're going to set them. So public movement type movement. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to come in here. We're actually going to do an OR. So OR movement is equal to test.movement. So there it is. And what we're actually, I changed my mind. Let's get rid of this. Let's just change it to a vector2 for now. And then we're going to test each value on its own. That way it's not too difficult there. So now if I accidentally go over a bit when I want to go down, it's okay. As long as I go down. But we also cannot do it if it's 0. So we're just gonna, since this is being a bit pain, bool valid movement, and we're gonna just test for movement. Well, we're gonna vector2 move, and we're gonna use this instead. So valid movement, what we're gonna do is if movement, so we're gonna bool valid equals true. So if movement.x does not equal 0, so if it's not equal to 0 and movement.x does not equal test.move or move.x, then it is not valid. And we're going to do the same for the y. And then we're going to return valid. There. So what this is doing, check x if movement x is not 0. And if they are not the same, then it's not valid. Do the same for y. So what this does is basically checks if our movement's okay. So if we want, yeah, I'll just come in here and, so if we go to player here, and you can see here, movement now is 0, 0. So if it is 0, 0, that means valid's going to always be true. Because if we go through here, so if it's 0, 0, so movement.x will be 0. So 0 does not equal 0. That's false. So this never sets valid to false, and neither will this. So valid will always be true. Right there. So this is going to be true if it's 0, 0. But that's we only want to check that if type is none. So return, we need to do if type is equal to none, then we return valid movement. Otherwise, so we're gonna grab this. So if attack type is none, else we want to check type is to test type. So if type is none, then we want to check movement. Otherwise, we want to check the type. So there. All right. So now if I want to do a fireball, I want to do a over and then back. So I guess we could change it to movement, huh? Just so we check the movement and we know that. So there, movement. Okay, there. So now when we go in here, they should change the movement. There. So now what it's going to do is we're going to do a right, left, and then a heavy attack. And that's going to summon a fireball. So now what we have to do is we kind of have to add those into our input here. So combo input. And so we got all of these. If we input them, that's fine. And then what we also want to do is we want to get them. So right here, so if input dot, or if movement input is input dot down x. So if our x goes down, we want input to equal a new combo input, but we want a specific attack. So vector 2, and this is going to be movement type equals, so we're going to want a attack type of movement, and then we want movement to equal m. And right here we're just going to want movement equal to vector 2 0. So now we have two different constructors. So we can come up here. So if our movement is coming down, so if we have x down, then what we want is we're just going to do movement equals vector 2 0 for now, and then movement dot x is equal to movement input dot x, and then the same with y. So what this does is it checks both of them and puts them all into one movement. And now if movement does not equal vector 2 0, then what it's going to be, that means we have inputted a movement. So now input is equal to new combo input. See, it's asking for an attack type, but we can also put in a vector 2. There. So that should work there. So now we have input of movement. And now what we need to do is go back to the player. And we're going to, come on. We're going to add this to our player quick. Come on. There it is. All right. Now, once that's the case, we can see if we can try to do fireball. So right, left, heavy. So yeah, that worked. Yeah. So fireball worked, right, left, up. But we did get an error. So we got a lot of errors. Let's collapse this. This might be easier. So timer greater than is equal to attack length. Did we not set attack length at all? That doesn't. Oh, because okay. So you can see we're getting it called at 132. So when we come to, we're attacking, but we're using the type of our input here. So getting attack from type right here, we're returning null. So what we need to do is we basically need to just double check this. So it's going to be an attack. We're just going to name it ATT and then add if it's not equal to null. So there we go. While we're here, we're going to be getting a last input, and this sets it null here, but we should set it null after the combo attacks too. So in prime combos, underneath skip, make sure you add last input equals null. That way we just reset and we're not going to, because same thing here, this is going to try to attack using our last input, and if our last input is just a movement, then we're going to have the same issues. So what we can do as well, just to kind of cover all ends here, is go up, copy that from what we did below, and we're going to do last input. ATT has an issue, probably because it's in there. Okay, well, attack, does that work? You want to yell at me for that? Okay, whatever, attack. And then attack, we can just use attack. And we can do if attack does not equal null. So we're just kind of covering our asses. Now that you are using movement as an attack type, we just don't want to attack if we're just doing movement itself. So if statement, so we're just kind of grabbing an attack. This might equal null, so we're going to check if it's null or not. If it's not, then we attack. We also want to set last input to null after we do a combo move. So now when we do this, let's see if it works now. So yep, we can still do fireball with over, down, up. We can attack, we can kick, and if we're moving, that's no biggie. We're not getting any errors anymore. There it is. All right. So that is working. So what we're going to do now is add full movement. So we're going to go back to movement input, might as well, because we already are reading some axes and stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to basically create a static vector 2 of our input. So public static get movement, and this is going to return a vector 2. So we're going to want to return a new vector 2, and we're going to want to just kind of get the x value to be get axis horizontal. We want our y value to be input.get axis vertical. So now in fighting combo, what we need to do is we need to get the character controller, because that's how we're going to move. So we're going to set that, we're going to get that component. And then we're going to want to get a vector 3 move direction. We're going to set it to vector 3 0 quick. So and then in update we want move direction where you want if we're attacking, we want move direction to be 0, or basically we're just going to do up. We want it to equal basically downwards for gravity and stuff. Else, so if we're not attacking, then we want move direction to be movement input dot get movement. We want to basically convert it quick to vector 3 with the y value being -1. There. We can. I'm just trying to make it so we're only calling it once. I'm not gonna get yelled at for input, am I? I am gonna get yelled at for input, aren't I? Why am I getting yelled at for input? There's already an input. Fine, we'll just do move. There. So this basically sets our move direction, and now what we gotta do is we'll use fixed update, because fixed update is where movement should basically be updated in, not regular update. You should do fixed update for movement. So our move, the move direction times the delta time, we need a we need some movement ones, so public float. We need move speed, which we'll just have 2, and then we also need gravity, which we'll just set to 20 for now. So we're just going to take these out of here too. There. Move speed. So move direction times delta time. So up here, what we're doing now, we'll set this to 0 quick. And then we'll do move direction is times by speed, move speed. And move direction dot y is minus time dot delta time. Gravity. There. And then up here, we're just going to times it by gravity and time to delta time. So we're just going to make this a bit better looking. There it is. We really don't even need move Y now that I'm thinking about it. Because we're never going to move forwards and backwards. I'm so used to doing like first person shooter. So 0. So we're not moving forward, just moving side to side instead. We're going to keep everything else though. So otherwise we would have been moving back and forth, and that's not what we want. So now when we move, we're moving back. We can still attack. And now let's see if I can do a... So yeah, even while I still move, I can still do a fireball. All right. So that's basically how you implement movement now. So now you can either do heavy, light, kick, or you can do movement. And if you do movement, make sure you set this. Otherwise, basically, it'll be a free combo area. All right, so next what we're going to do is we're basically going to, I'm going to show you how you can use onInputted to pretty much help you create better combos. So what we're going to do is, you can see here I have a fireball prefab, and just show you, it's basically just a sphere collider and a rigid body with a particle system. And what I'm going to do is I'm basically just going to create this and kind of send it off. So what we're going to do, let's go to scripts. We'll just create a, basically a cast system, and we'll put it on our player here. So cast system, put it down. Come on. There it is. And what we're going to do is we're going to create just actually a little script just to move the fireball. So we'll just do projectile. And we'll come in here. We'll just do a public vector 3 direction. A public we'll do a public transform follow. We'll do a float speed. This will be 12. We'll just set this to right. So what we're gonna do here is make this fixed update. So if follow, then we're gonna follow something. Otherwise, transform.position plus is equal dir times speed times time dot delta time. Otherwise, transform position equals transform position follow position and then time dot delta times speed. So basically just if we have something to follow, follow it. Otherwise, just move the direction. So this is now. So now with our fireball, we're going to add that projectile. And what we're gonna do, as you can see here, I have 2 cast spots. Basically right arm and left arm kind of thing. So let's go into cast system, public void, cast projectile. So what we're gonna do is we're going to form projectile, and then we're gonna have a public void throw projectile. So we're gonna have a array of projectiles. We're gonna have an int index for which one to form. Let's make this an array. For the throw projectile, that means we gotta keep track of what's in our hand. I'm not exactly sure if we can set a transform using a Unity event, but let's check quick. Otherwise, we'll just have to do specific ones. So on inputted, let's take the cast system into the character for now. So it needs to be with the animator. And then public, let's drag the character in because we want to reference the cast system. We want to, okay, see, it's not there, meaning we can't use cast from. So we're gonna either form projectile, we'll do left or right, basically. And in hand is gonna be null because if in hand is not null, and we're just gonna return. What we can do is we can basically take this, and if it is null, what you can do is you can split it up to like in hand right, in hand left if that's what you want. But I currently don't need that. But you can definitely do that. Change it up as much as you want. Again, these are all prototypes, so I'm just kind of rushing through this because this doesn't exactly matter. So we need 2 transforms. we'll do cast from left and right. And what this is basically doing is we're gonna grab the index. Gotta make sure that it's in our projectiles array. And then if then we're gonna clone it of projectiles from the index, and it's going to be nothing. We don't want that. So we're gonna want a position. So cast from, this is left position, and then quotidian identity. And then in hand equals clone.get component projectile. And then kind of basically the same thing. So what we can do is void. We can create the projectile using game object, and then hand. So we'll just do hand.position and then object completely. That way we can come in here, create projectile using projectiles at index, and then whatever our hand is. So this one will just cast from left. That way we didn't have to write out that full thing again. And then this one will be cast from right. Just for clarity's sake, right goes first. And then throw projectile basically if hand is null we return. So in hand follow equals null. And then in this create projectile we want in hand dot follow to equal hand. So what this does, it makes us be able to control all this from here. So if we want to make a fireball, we want to cast, form projectile, we're going to do right hand, which should be this one, right cast spot. So let's right hand, right cast spot, left cast spot, projectiles should be fireball is one. Go back into player. So 0 is the first one, so that's good. That's what we want. And then what we want to do is why we wanted the cast system on the animation is because in Fireball, we want to pick the spot where we want to launch it. So right here, I think is a good spot. Add a animation event, throw the projectile. So what it's doing is when we cast this combo, it's going to form the projectile on my right hand, then it's going to follow my right hand and shoot it like that. So that's how you can kind of use these on-inputted events. Ooh, but you see it didn't work this time. So, and that is because we never set, we set the in-hand never back to null. Because it's not in our hand anymore, so I want to make sure that we set it back to null after we set the follow to null. And you can adjust it the way you want. Like I said, these are just all... You can kind of see, it kind of looks like it's behind him a bit. Which is kind of correct. Yeah, see, now we can... Yeah. So you can work on it, of course. This is just showing you how it could work. But yeah, definitely it's helpful for when you're creating some pretty cool attacks. So you can use these on inputted events pretty creatively, really. So it's totally up to you on how you use them. So next what we're going to do is we are going to add movement with a button. So like if I want a special kick for aiming down, then I want to be able to do that, really. So let's do that now. So to do that, we're going to start with going into movement input. What we're going to do is we want to create a static vector2. We want to get an input instead of movement. So we're going to return a new vector2, just easily x and y. It's x and y, we kind of keep track of the movement anyway by referencing them in this script here. So we'll just get them down there. Fighting combo. So now combo input, we'll have a movement for both of these. So we want a vector2 m, and we just want to set movement to m. So now it's a bit different down here. We're not just testing the type. So let's get this up. So what we also want, so let me think here. So there. So now we're testing it as well. So if it's movement, we just test the movement. Otherwise, we test both of them. What we can do is just set valid then just kind of, and if it's valid or not. All right, what's up? Heavy, and then we want movement input, get input. So if it's 0, 0, then any input works. So if you just want a button and don't really care about input, then just leave it at 0, 0. Otherwise, you can see here, if I'm going to add another, this one's going to be called sweep. Input's just going to be 1. It's going to be a kick, but the Y has to be -1. So we have to be moving down. And then we can get rid of that. Sweep, and then my animation, I should check how much sweep is 1.867. So, and let's just make another one. This will be roundhouse. Roundhouse is the name. And it's 2.5 seconds. So let's do that. Inputs will be up, Y, and kick. So now when we kick, we'll do a regular kick if we're holding up. We'll do big roundhouse. If we're holding down, we'll do a sweep. And you can see, since these are zeros, since, where are you? Fireball, since that last heavy is 0, 0, it doesn't matter. But since these sweeps are specific inputs, we can do those now. There it is. So that's how you kind of implement them both in. So now if you have a specific input that you want for each button, I really only recommend the movement plus a button for just a singular combo. If you get multiple buttons into that, I highly recommend you just do movement for them, just because it kind of makes it difficult to cast that combo, especially when you only have 0.2 second leeway. So I really just recommend this for just one button, just special attacks that you want to play if they're doing a special input kind of thing. So definitely that. So next time what we're going to do is we're going to do aerial attacks, and then we're going to also create a system to make inputting combos easier, basically by allowing you to input combos while you're doing other attacks. So there will be another part to this, and So I hope these help. They're all prototypes though, so don't just go out there with this and make a game. Make it your own, definitely. But I hope this helps teach you, or just kind of help you kind of figure out your own system. But other than that, that is all I have for you today. So look forward to that next part.